simple idea of training. You need to compartmentalize your training. There are, there are as many ways to train as there are people who train. But you can largely group training into one of three, or a combination, but generally speaking, one of three ideas. You have skill practice, which is literally honing your skill set. This is not going to be particularly physically taxing, it's going to be more of a neurological workout. Then you're going to have, I'm going to call it conditioning. Conditioning is specifically skill oriented as opposed to flat out endurance exercise, but conditioning does have an endurance component to it. It's more than just being able to lift heavy objects or throw a punch. It's about being able to lift and carry that heavy object for a long distance, or lift objects repeatedly, or to throw a million punches, or grapple continuously for an hour. Whatever it is, conditioning is skill specific. Don't misunderstand that. It is skill specific, but conditioning is more or less a type of endurance workout. And then, of course, you have strength training. And strength training is literally just about increasing muscular output. I am including in that speed training because speed is really just strength. Speed is the ability of your muscles to produce significant output. So there you have it. You have strength training, you have skill training, and in between you have conditioning. Now, in the martial arts, and quite honestly, I've read from high-level practitioners in other areas that when they start cross-training with other practitioners, dancers training with gymnasts and whatnot, it turns out that even the high-level athletes fall prey to a lot of the gizmos and gadgets and the new fads and trends and the novelty workouts. And it's not really doing anything. A favorite, whipping boy is CrossFit. CrossFit in principle is fantastic. CrossFit in execution oftentimes is piss poor. Depends on the coach and the gym, the group of people you're working with, all that. But the idea is fairly solid if you know how to shape the exercise program. But what you need to do is you need to understand that there's a fundamental principle that's been lacking, and that is that strength training needs to happen specifically as strength training, working really nothing more than your primal movement patterns. That's it. Skill practice is skill practice, and of course along with that will come conditioning, and that needs to be separated out. And this is why they have certifications that are strength and conditioning coach. There's a reason why the two are separated in the title of the certificate, because the two are different. And I want to bring up an idea. Now, I've heard it said by high-level practitioners. I've not been able to find the study, but I have heard from high-level practitioners, including famous coaches like Scott Sonnen, that training your skill set with heavier implements, such as boxing with weighted gloves and things like that, will not help your skill set improve. For the simple fact that your nervous system registers it differently. When you have trained a skill and then you add load to it, and I don't know what the threshold is, like I said, I could not find the study, so this at the moment is just hearsay. But your nervous system separates the two. And so punching under load is no longer going to be actually training the punch. You're really just training your shoulder. And thus you're actually taking away from the training that you think you are doing. And of course, the other idea to being that, well, let's use the punch just because we can. Say you're using bands and whatnot. First of all, your punching doesn't happen up here. This is just all for arm extension. That's quick and fast. The power comes from hips and the floor, the ground, your root. So really, the best punchers aren't the guys with the best bench press. So, practicing punching with a rubber band across your back, or, by laying on your back with a dumbbell or something, isn't going to do a whole lot. But the other thing you're doing is you're training yourself to be tense, because you have to be tense when you're under load. You can't just, mustache hair. You can't just be relaxed under the weight. I mean, there's a certain degree of relaxation that you can take, but as soon as you start tensing, trying to press, you're getting a whole different kind of tension than you would for a strike. Striking and pressing are actually two very different modalities. Now the other side of it, and this is a side that is more well documented over and over and over again, and that is when you're strength training, you're strength training. When you're conditioning, you are conditioning your skill set, which means you are going to be doing high volumes of your skill movements. Which means if you start adding in loaded skill movements on top of your actual skill practice, you're actually going to be going into greater risk of pattern overload, and that pattern overload is going to create massive muscular imbalances that are going to take years to reverse. So the idea that I want you to take away from this is that when you're strength training, be strength training. Don't be worrying about, is this going to help my punch? Is this going to help my kick? Is this going to help my shot? Is this going to help my race car driving? Whatever it is. Don't worry about that. You're in there to enhance your muscular output. It's the purpose of strength training. Your skill training should be separate. And I've heard people say, skill training should be 6 days a week, 7 days a week. I don't disagree. Strength training should be, in fact, a lower volume, because the load that you're placing your body under is, in fact, a form of intensity, and that intensity can only be maintained so frequently before you have to spend time recovering. Now, always plan your recovery. So that's all I got for you. Compartmentalize your training. Understand that strength training and conditioning and skill practice are separate things. And sometimes you need to slow down and just work on the skills, just work on the neurological component. Sometimes you need to go into just conditioning mode and bang out going into high stress, high repetition skill conditioning. And then other times you really need to just chill off on that and lift some heavy ass weights. And I will talk to you guys next time. Good journey.